secure device without also managing it. Because how do you know if there's a vulnerability? How do you do something about it? You need to either update that application or stop access to that device. And all of these things, we work closely with Apple to make sure that those applications are available when Apple releases their update, and then we can roll that out at the same time.
We were moving, systems to the home, at the home, and then there was suddenly need for EDR, XDR. We all were learning, new terms. One area, I think every CISO, those who are sitting here can relate with me. We have taken care well about our endpoint system, laptop, desktop.
In the world has ever laser focused on Apple, like we've done. And that's the reason why the gold standard and the security thing that we've got. And that's a huge opportunity for us, and we would want to kind of keep improving.
The challenging requirements that come from business day in, day out, I think that excites me up to a certain extent. And how do we match internally to make it a robust solution from a security standpoint, from a management standpoint, and from an audit standpoint also up to a large extent.
Thanks for being here today. This is a very important day for us here, and a lot of important conversations that's going to be happening through this evening. So for those of you who do not know me, I've been introduced by Shreya. My name is Shanteri Malya, and I lead CIO and CISO conversations in economic times, business verticals. So it's my pleasure to be here. So thank you, Ravinder. Thank you, Anand. Thank you, John, and thank you, Chiru. I can call you Chiru, for joining us on this panel. So the premise of this discussion is going to kind of rest with the motherhood theme of this evening, which is about the rise of endpoint resilience. So as we see digital transformation really kicking off, so endpoint resilience assumes an imperative which is not just about organizations seeking to protect data or devices. Ultimately, it's about reputation, it's about looking at a holistic idea towards cybersecurity, right? So the idea of the rise of endpoint resilience is reshaping the way organizations are looking at securing their devices, securing their touch points, and also in the process, looking at a more holistic approach to their risks and endpoint management, in short. So without further ado, let's kind of get some more insights from our experts today in terms of a vision for Jamf, which John will kind of outline, and with Chiru kind of giving more insights in terms of customer conversations, and some customers who will also be sharing their journeys, their pain points, their challenges, and what they have really been evaluating in terms of their visions from their organization standpoint. So let me bring John into let me welcome John into this discussion. John, you have the, the honors of starting and commencing this discussion here.
Thank you.
No googlies in your direction, I assure you. So there is a huge shift, to the hybrid environment. Post-COVID, COVID had its own kind of, its compulsions, if I may say, or constraints. But post-COVID, most organizations, irrespective of size, have kind of shifted in terms of a hybrid approach. So in this sort of an environment, most organizations have also looked at how they're looking at their risks, their cybersecurity, their security, their device management in a very different way. What are some of those trends you see kind of emerging from this? What are the shifts you've been seeing, and how does Jamf really look at its customer conversations at this point of time?
Sure.
All yours.
Thank you. Well, our mission at Jamf is to help organizations succeed with Apple. We've had over a 2-decade very close partnership with Apple, and we believe it's the best way to simplify work. And it's the easiest, most intuitive device. It's the ecosystem, the interoperability of all of those devices really lends itself to people, especially when we went to the remote environment completely. We had companies that would just be able to ship an Apple MacBook to an employee that maybe just started, or if they needed a refresh, and they would be able to take the shrink wrap off, load it up, register it, and then everything was provisioned and ready to go. And that really helped during the remote working environment. We saw that proliferate considerably. And so we really leaned into that. And then when people, even when they're starting to come back into the office, it's, and Chira, you mentioned this earlier today, it's not every day, 5 days a week for most cases. There's always at least 1 day a week, or sometimes they're traveling. So there's still a lot of need for the capability to do things a zero touch, is how we talk about it. One of the things that we've seen as far as, if I go to the second part of the question, some of the trends that we're seeing as it relates to device management, and then also manage and secure. And even, Apple makes the most secure operating system available. But as I mentioned earlier, some of our customers said, boy, we would really like to have some more assurances to be able to use that telemetry from that endpoint to be able to feel good about and secure about those devices accessing our corporate resources. And as Apple has a bigger and bigger footprint in the enterprise, then that lends itself even as more of an attractive and larger target for bad actors. So that's some of the reasons why the CISOs and the InfoSec organizations have been asking us to help give them some of those assurances. We've seen the proliferation of deskless workflows, and particularly with the Apple ecosystem, because it's very consistent across the board, where airlines, as an example, pilots will carry iPads in the cockpit versus the flight books, and the flight attendants will walk up and down the aisle carrying an iPhone, and the maintenance workers using iPads instead of manuals to fix the aircraft. All of those things, even down to the airlines asking us to make sure that the watch can be under management so that they can track the bags. And as soon as a baggage handler touches that bag, they know that where that bag was and at what time it was last seen along its journey. All of those things really lend itself to the Apple ecosystem. And those things all need to be not only managed to make sure that they have the right applications on there, but also security, because you can't have a secure device without also managing it. Because how do you know if there's a vulnerability? How do you do something about it? You need to either update that application or stop access to that device. And all of these things, we work closely with Apple to make sure that those applications are available when Apple releases their update, and then we can roll that out at the same time.
Yes, brings to mind that now wearables are very much a part of, the device periphery. Oh my God, yeah, that was a phenomenal point actually, right? Yeah, thanks for that, John. We'll circle back to you. I'm going to pick your brains again, yeah? Okay. So let me call in Ravinder. Ravinder, hi, good to see you again. How do you really define endpoint resilience at this point of time in the context of large landscapes, global, infrastructures, growing hybrid and remote workforces? So how do you really look at your problem statements at this point of time, if any, and how has Jamf really come in? How have you really engaged with them?
I think we all can recall that era, and I think I was. Somebody mentioned yesterday only that it's been 4 years yesterday when lockdown started in India.
Correct.
I think yesterday was that day, and I think we all can remember when organization, those who never moved back.
5, in fact.
5. Yeah, 5, sorry.
2020 March, yeah.
Yeah, 5. And every organization had suddenly started some ways to start the hybrid mode and everything. I represent a software organization which already have this, all arrangements of hybrid mode and everything, but definitely challenges when we all move. There were challenges because, most of the time only critical workforce, we're a client mandate that you have to from BCP point of view, but it was more like, only 100% of people initially. Now even we are in hybrid mode and only 30% of the people come to the office. In all offices, 19 offices we have around the globe. And I think one area which I learned based on my experiences, which became most critical in overall security landscape, it was actually endpoint security. Because we were moving systems to at the home, and then there was suddenly need for EDR, XDR. We all were learning new terms. One area, I think every CISO, those who are sitting here can relate with me. We have taken care well about our endpoint system, laptop, desktop. Then mobile devices, because everybody was accessing their emails from mobile, and they were doing their application, internal application. Initially, when I started, speaking with, basically representative Rupam is here, about this, product. I think one question I asked that why Apple devices need security is already secure. I mean, that was actually mindset, we were carrying from years that Apple is the most secure. But recently, I remember there was some back-to-back incidents came in news, as well. And I think nothing is secure in this era. And, I think we all can relate with that. Looking at more sophisticated attacks, which is happening. And, now even more critical, these hackers started using this Gen AI technology. Yep. Compare more with, defenders, which we are sitting that side. I think there is definitely, it's a critical area. And, Jamf is really, really helped us in helping us. There was one part that, we have actually onboarded in our system to, basically our endpoint devices, but we are already, I mentioned that, now there is a need for mobile security as well. Seriously, we are actually taking steps toward that. And I think in the future, I can see, rest of the years as well, there will be different areas, there will be new technologies, there will be new buzzword every day. But I think one thing, so, on a lighter side, I was asking in, one of the college, which is the most safest system in this world? Which is the most safe system in this world? The system which is actually having no network connectivity, internet, nothing. And I don't think so we are living in that area. So if we have to work, we are, connecting in different. I think we really have to ensure that we are having best of products in terms of endpoint security. Thank you.
Sure. That's a great testimonial. We'll come back to you, Ravinder, in just a bit. Anand, so heavily regulated, industry. RBI hot on your trail, and then now, the DPDP, kind of. The Data Protection Act, rules kicking off, or soon to kick off. A lot of, deciphering and decoding happening there. So how do you really define endpoint resilience? There can never be a perfect answer. There can never be 100% answer of what you know and what you do not know. But how are you really looking at it at this point of time?
Good evening, everyone, and thanks, Jeff, for probably putting me on a panel and giving my views out. I think probably I'll take a step behind. I think banking, security, and regulatory, they all go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
And that's all in the interest of the customers that we serve day in, day out. Looking at the entire endpoint ecosystem, probably I'll take a step behind. And like John said, we start from what the customers need in terms of internal as well as external. When you look at internal, basically customers, we look at a strong strategy from an endpoint where we want people to use self-service. We want them to be proactive. We want them to use automation as much as possible. We want them to experience channels different. And then finally, last but not the least, is the experience part of it. We call it the space strategy for the endpoint. When we have to match this strategy, we want to look at robust solutions available in the market, be it Windows, be it Mac. I'll be perfectly honest where I think the Mac or the Apple device penetration in the Indian market has been less in terms of corporate. Look at 1%, 2%, 3% of the organization, but it's growing because enterprises are looking very interested in the robust architecture that Apple has and then want to enjoy that on the developer and developer experience side. So when we look at managing this whole device, I think the approach has been always multi-layered. Like Ravi said, we want to look at EDRs, we want to look at XDRs, we want to look at zero trust. But when we look at a combined solution like Jamf, I think it combines everything into one go. It probably manages everything, and now we have started expecting magic out of Jamf, to be honest. The business has started evolving around the solutions that IT has been providing. For example, we want to look at taking the branch on the cloud. We want to look at more and more visiting the customers, taking everything on a handheld and probably servicing the customers. When you look at all that data, all that applications coming on one portal or one handheld device, security becomes inevitable. And that's where solutions like Jamf come into the picture, and we want to build a zero trust type of an environment within the endpoints to service the customers.
Absolutely. So taking it to the customers for your field force, right? Okay, great. So great point. So Chiru, that that's a valid point that Anand brought in for the fact that adoption of Apple devices per se is still a number which is yet to catch on. very naturally, because India is still taking to the magic of Apple, right? It never loses its sheen or premiumness, so to say. So I've also been a reluctant transitioner to an iPad. So I'm still largely an Android user, but I've slowly transitioned into it by force of family and colleagues who said, I think you should slowly transition. So having said that, this is a user and there's organizations, right? So as the uptake, is increasing in organizations, how are you really looking at taking those opportunities that are coming your way? And you have, of course, accredited customers, stories that you can share here. So how does endpoint resilience or integrated security, how are these two like marrying into an integrated story for Jamf in India?
So you've switched over to an iPad. The thing about an Apple device is once you switch over, then it's hard to kind of go on to anything else.
Sure,
Right?
I'll
I
hold
think
you to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been using an Apple device for the last 25 years. And sometimes whenever I use a Windows device, unfortunately in the schools, the NCRT still has a lot of Windows into it. And for that, we have a Windows device for educational purposes.
Oh, I see, okay.
And when I use that, probably my daughter says, "You never used a computer, is it?" It's, sometimes you find it so difficult because Apple devices are easy. But just adding on to what Anand just mentioned, right? I think while the install base right now on Apple is small, but probably some of the statistics. In fact, today morning we were having a conversation with Frost and Sullivan where they were sharing some of the statistics in terms of where globally, okay, PC shipments are declining. The only shipments that are on the upward trend I think probably for many years now, for the last 5-6 years, is only been on the Apple device in the enterprise space. And that's so true for India as well. We are looking at in terms of many customers here across various industries. We know probably one of the easiest thing, or probably we assume that, yeah, if it's tech, you're going to use an Apple device. A developer probably needs a Mac. That persona probably is well suited. I think it's going beyond that. One primary reason is that I'll tell you from a user perspective and then also from an organization's perspective. From a user perspective, whether we like it or not, it's the millennials and the Gen Zs coming into the workforce, right? So they're going to push most of the organizations in terms of saying that, hey, we would want to kind of work on devices of our choice.
Correct.
Right? And that's the reason why we are already seeing those shifts, okay, globally and in India as well, where it's going beyond the usual developer community to, airline obviously is one example. There's, banking, for example, right? It's going in terms of choice, okay, where different personas are being given the choice in terms of whether you want to use a Mac. And it's been embraced, okay, by many organizations. And the second aspect in terms of Apple adoption that we see, and as an opportunity, right, for Jamf, from an organization perspective, and it's so glad that it's happening. Even today, earlier, we're having conversations, and most of the conversations were circling around experience. There are roles that have been created in many organizations. I'm sure the leaders will agree that there's a chief experience officer. I mean, I don't think so that this role ever existed.
Correct.
A few years back. So that actually also is an indication that many organizations are looking at that experience is in the forefront. And while you need to kind of make sure you adhere to what the enterprise would need in terms of compliance and other aspects. So that's what Jamf kind of brings in, and the customers here kind of acknowledge on that fact that we bring in the right experience in terms of that you would need, especially on an Apple device, which is known for experience, right? We don't negatively impact the experience at all as multiple agents that could be sitting as a platform. So that's a huge opportunity for us. And we also get a question in terms of saying that, okay, and especially with a lot of new prospects, not a lot of new customers where we have a conversation, or probably with our existing customers as well. So when are you coming up with your tools for Windows or other platforms, right? I think probably John will answer that probably much better than me, but I think Apple focus, our laser focus on Apple is in our DNA. And our mission statement says that we help organizations succeed with Apple. And we've been doing this for the last 20 years. No other organization in the world has ever laser focused on Apple like we've done. And that's the reason why the gold standard and the security thing that we've got. And that's a huge opportunity for us. And we would want to kind of keep improving in terms of bringing in new things. And John did mention about the acquisition that we're doing. So adding elements that would make sense for our customers to kind of make sure when you're looking at Apple as a platform, that Jamf is able to kind of provide you end to end from manageability, which has become a baseline now, right? Ravinder did mention about, during pandemic, you looked at in terms of business, BCP was the most used term, right? and many organizations were already ready. Few of them probably geared up in few months' time. And right now, management is the baseline. If there's an organization which just have 20 devices, it's not saying that, okay, good to have, it's a must have. And that's something that we do really well.
Absolutely. In fact, when you spoke about the fact that there are new personas evolving in terms of chief experience officer, I think, yeah, because now I think that's a community that even organizations that are hitherto, traditional organizations in the brick and mortar industry also now have experience officers. And we had a complete IP around that, recently from ET Brand Equity. A symposium that dedicated itself to this persona. So it's important, it's emerging, and there's no denying that. So great. So maybe we'll just kind of stop for a minute or two and ask our friends here if they have anything to ask our panelists. This is a good time. Do you have anything to, sort of share here? Yeah, and add on any observations. A couple of comments which are very interesting in terms of the uptake of, Apple in the enterprise. Any thoughts that are coming in? Of course, we've all engaged with Jamf, so any thoughts that you have? Yeah, don't be shy. I repeat. Anything that you... Yeah, that's true. So maybe we'll circle back. There's time. We'll come back. No worries. So, Anand, looking ahead, what really at this point of time excites you in terms of what you're looking at? Some very interesting things that we've heard coming up at your end. So, what are you really looking at this point of time, and how does security really become the fulcrum there?
To be honest, I think the entire endpoint industry, and people would agree up to a certain extent, the expectations from the endpoint and the overall security feature has been as good as like a retail agency, right? Whatever you expect day in, day out from a retail outlet like Amazon's or Swiggy's that you order, I think the flexibility that you have in terms of the entire stuff, that's what you expect from endpoint. You want to take that endpoint anytime, anywhere, probably operate out of it. And then there are a lot of use cases, business propositions that come up which the endpoint management has to manage. Now you can do that only when you have a very strong management solution in place. And like Chiru said, everything that you put on a endpoint device, I think the most watched for is the experience part of it. And then you need a solution which will not hamper the overall experience, but manage anything and everything. A solution that probably should look at the entire spectrum of the whole management. Like if you want a mobile, you manage it through the same solution. You have an iPad, you manage it through the same solution. You got a MacBook, manage it through the same solution. So something that probably has a spectrum or rainbow of campus to operate around. So when I look forward to answer your question, I think the challenging requirements that come from business day in, day out, I think that excites me up to a certain extent. And how do we match internally to make it a robust solution from a security standpoint, from a management standpoint, and from an audit standpoint also up to a large extent to meet the requirements overall. So that's something we look forward for.
Sure. So is visibility a major ask for you? You said you need one solution to really look at everything, end to end. So is visibility a major challenge for CISOs at this point?
I would not say visibility. I think everybody's aware of the playground that we are playing around. I think the demands from the customer, and I think the entire industry has been customer driven up to a large extent. what to expect from customer, what is the new thing that they want to come. So there is some unique idea somewhere in the world that props up, that expands across the globe. And those unique ideas have to meet all the criteria in terms of your risk, your management, and then you have to implement that on a broader scale. I think that's what something that we look forward for all.
Sure.
I'll just add, I know this Kotak is working on some really cool stuff, in terms of digitization and the experience that they want to kind of bring into the retail customers. I know probably it's still not out there, but I'm, hearing those stories is really exciting. Yeah.
Sure, yeah, I know. So we'll wait for you to publicly talk about it at some point.
Yeah, of course, at some point.
Yeah, so let's build the suspense there, It's like, bhai kya ho raha hai? You'll hear, later offline. Anyways.
And we believe in our slogan, "Hausla hai to ho jayega."
Haan, yeah. Great. Ravinder, so how critical or vital is it for teams internally to really be able to, security teams in particular, to be able to collaborate, have those right external collaborations, such as with partners such as Jamf. So how are you really looking at your collaborations, A, and how does it tie back to your strategies? How are you planning to ramp these up in 2025 and beyond? What's your future POV?
So, I think like when we, talk about teams, I think there is a hybrid or there is a, even that structure now. I mean, if I think time has gone that, now you will not see, 300-man security team. It's more like distributed with, you have outsourced, you have done automation in some areas, and, you have some internal team to managing, something, then you have some teams, our environment to manage customer security and all that. So I think that, one area, but I think the most important point that, now you have multiple products to manage. Vendor consolidation is one challenge that every CISO, I'm not saying that there is, there is an easy solution for that, because every technology and every product has, good in their, area. And I don't want to name, but some, companies tried in that area that they will come up with, one consolidation, but I don't think so. There is a much options available, very 2, 3, you can do that. So, we definitely, going back to the team, they really have to manage with multiple things. And now I will come to your point. Yes, one challenge is monitoring. That is very important for a CISO. When you are managing multiple, products, and you really need a single dashboard of your vulnerabilities, of your risk, overall organization that, are having, and your threat intelligence and your threat landscape and everything. I think that is one thing that is a challenge. There is not a boring day in a CISO
In the
life.
life
Not a
of a
single
CISO.
day I can tell you. There is not a single day. If you will see some days are passing good, then you should be more careful. So this is my learning. So yeah. And so this is about your second question. Sorry, I missed that.
So how are you really ramping up your strategies? So it's the age of AI now, right?
Yeah,
so you
yeah.
said there's no boring day. So I'm sure AI brings fresh
AI
flavors.
brings. So definitely, for any CISO, in my case as well, my strategy, security strategy, is aligned with business strategy. My organization is heavily working on AI. We sell Gen AI to our customer. We have done some acquisition recently, in some organization having good product on AI. Definitely, when we are going back and selling, and internally, security and privacy actually am becoming a big concern when it comes to any new technology like AI. We heard some incident about data, some organization where user have posted sensitive PII, and especially dealing with this privacy laws. So I think all strategy, and the most important point when work with industry like us, I think security and privacy by design. That is the first fundamental. So it should be a before thought rather than a afterthought. I am, going in the market with my product, and now I have started working. Okay, now I will look at the security and privacy. I am telling you, it's going to be a fail. And one, one bad reputation can, lead to many other risks. So I think that is so definitely strategy is based on a business strategy, and looking at all this new technology, all this coming. You mentioned about DPDP. So our organization, we work globally. So we are already complying with GDPR, PDPA in Singapore, CCPA in California. And now every country is coming up with their privacy law. So strategy will definitely include that we need a global privacy framework. For every country coming up with a privacy law, I don't have to redefine my strategy every time. I should have a global privacy framework which will cater all of this requirement. So I think this is all based on what my business is doing.
Correct. I think there are 137 privacy frameworks in motion right now, right? So yeah, that's interesting. Absolutely a very valid ask. So Chiru, at this point of time, when digital transformation is like really taking off, so and Jamf has also made some very interesting acquisitions. So will these acquisitions, you know, the products, the offerings, also integrate into your current conversations? How do you see it going? So any specific instances or I mean, I know you may not be able to disclose everything at this point, but anything that you can talk about.
Yeah. S- do I say everything all, John?
Yeah.
The acquisition. No, I think if you look at in terms of Jamf's journey, right? Obviously, device management. Even now, today, if you see in terms of Apple device management, the gold standard. That's still in terms of core of our conversation because we believe that it's still very relevant. While I said it's become the baseline, okay, I think it's at the center of the conversation and all the things built around, okay, in terms of be it automation, be it experience that you would want to kind of create, is the products can work with each other, right? And especially over the last, I would say, and John during his opening keynote that he mentioned that, you know, we've been doing device management really well, and we heard our customers. And when I started off saying that, okay, we've gotten a customer this evening, is to kind of hear from them. And we are what we are because of those feedbacks. And also in terms of the acquisition or the product developments that we do, is to kind of really look at those gaps that we can really fill in. It's not in the space saying that, okay, I also have a Me Too product, saying that, okay, I can also do this. For us, if you look at our portfolio and in terms of our conversation, in terms of, it's a very holistic conversation. Okay, there's something called as trusted access. Okay, trusted access is not a product, but it's basically a vision that we have.
It's an idea.
Outcome.
It's an outcome, right? But users get the experience that they would want, and organizations can get the compliance and their requirements kind of fulfilled in, right? It's that balance, and that's actually fulfilled by our products. And sometimes it's working. You know, we have this conversation with our customers that you don't have to kind of remove everything that you would have, right? Sometimes probably you would have to kind of take that decision in terms of saying that, hey, you know what, this makes sense, so I'm going to replace this too. And it also in terms of how do, and you know, in the current scheme of things, you know, you're a true enterprise product where it can actually kind of coexist with a lot of other tools being in place. And how do you kind of work along with each other? How are your integrations in place? So that's what we see, and that's the conversation that we have with our customers in terms of, you know, the overall platform.
Absolutely. So, John, you know, if you would want to add on to what Chiru just said, and also the fact that, you know, Jamf is also kind of looking beyond Apple, right? Apple is the mainstay. So, are you like really looking beyond Apple at this point of time? And I think you're the best person to answer this. And B, how are you like now looking at integrating looking beyond Apple into the Apple story as well? Because Chiru brought up the point of how, you know, processors, applications, devices should talk to each other. Interoperability becomes the ask. It's been an ask for quite some while. Yeah. So how are you really marrying these stories, and how is Jamf going to keep evolving in this space, looking at emerging threats, keeping that delicate balance between its core story as well as the emerging stories? So, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean,
CEO vision, basically.
our goal here is to make productive employees. And you all have much more to worry about working with the business strategy and how you can take your company to the next level through the technology that you're developing and deploying internally, to have to worry about, you know, this user's got this going on, or it's hard to do this, or it's hard to do that. So we're trying to simplify that work by providing that productivity and some peace of mind to all of you so that you can have an outcome that your employees need and that your company needs to move forward. You know, with respect to going beyond Apple, we realize there's other platforms out there, maybe not as good, but there's other platforms out there. And we want to make sure that we're Apple first and Apple best. The further you get from the device, the less Apple specific we need to be. So we have some network security products, for example, that can be deployed across other environments or can protect in other environments as well. On the education side, in the U.S., we have a product globally called Safe Internet, and it can actually. We believe that if a kid that's looking at using an iPad and he's not supposed or she's not supposed to see this certain content, we believe that a child, just because they're using a Chromebook, they shouldn't see it either. So we're able to protect kids across platforms like that. And there's other ways that we can deploy across other environments. But again, our target here is, and we believe strongly in this because of our 2-decade partnership with Apple, that's the simplest, most productive way, and employees are choosing it. Fletcher Previn is the CIO of Cisco now, and he was the CIO of IBM. He did studies at both organizations about 5 years apart and very consistent results. And he noted that when an employee is offered a choice, what's going to make you most productive? They've said an Apple device. Even if they had a PC in their last refresh and they weren't new to the company, but they were refreshing, they chose an Apple device. And then the question is, well, boy, wait, that's very expensive. But he actually did a TCO, a total cost of ownership, across the life cycle of the product, and found out that the Apple devices were actually less expensive by several $100s during that lifetime because, one, the IT tickets were about 20% of what it was for other products. So he saved money across the board. It made the employees more productive because that's the device that they wanted to use. And there's a reason why they wanted to use it, because it's easier to use and it makes them more productive, which then combine that with management and security together gives the InfoSec and CISO organizations some peace of mind that the data that those devices that are out in the wild in these hybrid and remote environments are accessing corporate data, that they can trust the access of those devices. And I think you combine all of these things together, and I think that's really what we're here to do, is listen from you and tell us how to make your employees more productive, and that's what we're dedicated to do and have been for the last 2 decades.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for that. I think we've had a sort of a great discussion here, and I think at a broader level, we kind of understood some nuances of what trusted access could really be, and Jamf's story in this whole picture. So on that note, we kind of call to a close. If you have any questions for the panel, please feel free. If not, of course, we have the rest of the evening. We're all around. It's a closed room here. We can have more conversations offline as well. So if you have any questions, fair enough. We will take the silence as the brief pause. Okay, so great. Thank you so much, Ravinder. Thank you, Anand. Thank you, John. Thanks a lot, Chiru. And thank you so much for sharing your insight.